guys, welcome back to Turntable Guy. I haven't seen this iconic beast on the bench yet, at least not in my videos. I do service quite a few of these, but most of the time I don't video them because there are so many videos on YouTube about the Technics 1200 Mark II through Mark V. Everything you want to know is out there. Usually I just service them and move on. This particular gentleman here brought in two. He brought in a black 1200, a later edition Mark II, and it was an absolute horror story. I was thinking about filming it, but once I took the main board cover off, I noticed a tremendous amount of corrosion. He mentioned to me that when he pressed start, it was spinning crazy fast, and that is an issue with these tables, and it usually has to do with a bad IC. Either the AN6675 or the AN6680 have shit the bed, and they control speed and so forth. But when I had a look at the actual board, I've never seen anything like it before. There was corrosion all throughout the board, and there was corrosion in the transformer, which was really scary. And once I pulled up the board, the main spindle bearing sits here, and it was covered in a white powder, which is obviously some kind of oxidation from the aluminum, and the main bearing was seized. So I texted him right away and I said, listen, there's just no way this thing's going to run again. There's corrosion everywhere. I would go in and I would touch the capacitors, and they would break off in my fingers, like right between. As soon as I moved them, they would break off from the rust. So I told him, I said, listen, if you want to leave it here for a little while, I'll pick through it, you know, I'll try to clean the board. I said, no guarantees, right? So anyway, I replaced all the bad capacitors I could see, checked the back. There was no corrosion on the back side of the board, luckily. And when I hit start, it started to spin normally. And but the quartz, there was no quartz lock, and the quartz lock light wasn't lighting up. So took the pitch control off, and there's lots of videos explain to you how to remove the pitch control and lubricate, clean the slider, and oh, isn't that lovely hair? And you know, the reason it wasn't locking is the LED for the pitch control was burned out. So unfortunately, I didn't have a square LED. I put in a round one, but at least now it's locking. Although when you do touch the control here, you can see the LED just kind of getting dim and then brightens up all of a sudden. And I had deoxided the sliders, cleaned there's some wipers on the back side of this, cleaned those, sanded them lightly, you know, applied some lubricant, and still it's just a matter that the actual pads are just worn out. So really he has to replace the entire slider and pitch mechanism here. So, but unbelievably, it is spinning again, and I'm sure he's going to be super happy. Although I did not clean out, you know, a lot of the corrosion in the transformer and stuff like that. I'm just not getting into that. That's, you know, he bought these turntables without really having a look underneath, which is what you should do, because it's very obvious that these have been DJ'd, and they go through hell and back. They're a tough table, there's no doubt about it, and you know, they can be restored and repaired, but a lot of them, like this one here, it's not bad, but you can tell it's been to hell and back, right? This one, the VT8 does not turn, so I thought maybe we could get a look at that. I don't know if there's any videos out there about that, and maybe we'll just surprisingly the queuing works. Maybe we'll just get a quick look and do a service and go from there. Like I said, I don't do a lot of 1200s, and I mean, it is the world's most famous turntable. So I thought, what the hell, let's film one at least and go from there. Anyway, so you just bought your brand new or very old Mark II, and you want to get it going. So what are the first things you check for, right? So obviously you're going to want to plug it in, and even the cord's a little rusty on this one. You do have power. There's your on-off switch on these. Should light up an LED here that illuminates the strobe. And all you want to do is you want to hit start and see how she goes. Then have a look. This one is holding quartz. It's doing 33 and 45, so that's the most important thing. It's spinning, right? So good. Next thing you want to check, obviously, is do we have sound? And use my reach. This one is got its ground cable still on here. Sometimes you find these are internally grounded. DJs don't want to mess around with grounds, so they cut off the ground cable and they internally ground them, and they run the ground lug down one of the negative legs of the RCA cables. So we'll just plug this in. This guy did not bring me any dust covers. It could be very well that they didn't have dust covers. So we've got our connections here, and then we're going to just install one of my, this is very gummy, just install mine, turn her on. Oh, look at this, eh? You see how that's kind of flickering? I don't know if you can see that or not. These get very dirty. Okay, let's see here. Do we have sound? We do. We have sound in left and right channels. We have no hum. No hum. So cables are good. Cables are good. Speed's good. So it looks like we have an okay table here. So actually, I'll just get rid of this. Let's check some other things on it. Unplug to lift up your Technics. Now this could be frozen solid. I see a little bit of rust, a little bit of, well, not rust, but a little bit of corrosion in here. This was in my garage last night, so that's why you're seeing a little bit of moisture on there. So get the back end of a hammer, just give that a little tap, or back end of a screwdriver, use it as a hammer. There you go. You'll see it start to break there, and you can get your platter off. Okay, so we do have some lovely bugs and all sorts of crusty, gross things in here. These were obviously left outside. This one, the other one was a black one. It's pretty obvious to me that they left this outside, and you can see a little bit of that corrosion around the spindle bearing here as well. So we'll get a look at that. Yeah, there's corrosion on this one too. I'm hoping the board's not as bad as the last one. The last one was a disaster, so maybe we're gonna see the same kind of issue here. The difference being, look, the screw's totally rusted. The difference being, of course, that this one's actually working. Yuck. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Same thing. Look at that transformer. Oh man. Okay. This is definitely an older model. It's got the brown board, but it's got the better capacitors. The newer model had actually here's the caps here, and the LED. This is what I removed from that other one, so you can see that. There's these weird, look at the legs of these capacitors. I don't know if you can see that or not. See how it's broken off and totally corroded? You see that? totally rusted. These ones totally broke off. This one here. This is an Elna cap. These survived better than whatever brand these are. I'm not sure what these are. No, Panasonic branded Matsushita. And this was the dead pitch LED. But I keep these for the customer so that he knows what I changed out. So, we've got, what the heck was that? Oh, that was a cow. So we've got another really rusty 1200 here. I think what we'll do, this one is running, so I don't want to tempt fate too much. So I think what we'll probably end up doing with this one is I will take it outside and I'm going to give it a nice blast with the compressor. Get some compressed air on there and try to get out as much garbage as possible. This is really bad too. And I'll come back once that's a little bit cleaner. Again, I'm not touching the transformer, you know, I don't want to mess with this. It's crystallizing over here. But we'll give this thing a blowout. We'll bring it back. And then we'll start checking the board for any faults. I don't think there's going to be many. You know, but we'll replace any capacitors that have any rust or corrosion. The board doesn't look corroded, which is lucky. The last one, what you see over here is basically what was over here, and this big. You can see a little bit of this white powder here. It was actually fluffy, and it was coming up and out. So this bearing is very sticky. Maybe we'll service the 1200 bearing too. All right, let's take a pause, and I'm going to go and blow this out, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back from our cleaning. I managed to get quite a bit of the loose, flaky corrosion off of this thing. So now I thought we can definitely inspect the board. Again, there's a lot of videos on 1200s out there, so if I'm repeating some of the stuff you've seen out there, I apologize. But let's discuss how you remove a 1200 board. There are 3 main connectors. So this is our power supply and motor connector. This goes to your pitch switch, or switch your pitch controller. Just tuck that out of the way. And if I believe, if I remember correctly, I think this is the lamp. Yeah, this is the lamp. So this controls this pop-out light here. All right, so once you have those, there should be 3 main screws. This is a grounding screw down here. It's also something good to keep clean and make sure there's no corrosion on. There's your ground. And then 2 more that secure the board to the chassis. All right, so once you have those out, the board will not come out yet because you need to detach the motor. It's these are 3 very long screws. They go right through into the chassis as well. Careful not to strip these when you're putting them back in. So you'll see there a big long screw like that. Okay, now it should come up. And you'll have access to the spindle bearing once you do this. There we go. Oh man. Oh dear. Wow. This is horrible. Oh God. it's also quite a bit different to the, this is an earlier edition Mark 12. It's not as early as mine. Mine's a 1979. I'm not sure what the date is on this one, but wow, this is horrible. I mean, in all honesty, this should just be replaced. I mean, it's believe it or not, it's still spinning, but I'm gonna have to take this apart and clean each part separately. Even if, hopefully I can get these screws out if they're not rusted solid. On the newer model 1200s, there's no gear here because it's unnecessary, because this is a completely manual turntable. This is just an E-clip that holds it from coming out, right? So that's the difference. Look at that, eh? I'm shocked as to, you know, how mistreated something like this is. And obviously I couldn't even get my blower into there. There's a whole bunch of rust down there. Well, you know what? I said there's a bunch of SL1200 videos on YouTube, but I don't think there's any videos on there about rusty SL1200s, right? So I'm going to probably take this apart off screen, and I'll show you, like, if you have a normal bearing, how to lubricate it. But anyway, let's have a look at this board. I'm just going to probably pause, and I will get a look at the board. We know that it's working, so there can't be too much wrong with it. But if there are any corroded capacitors, or any that are looking a little fuzzy underneath, maybe I'll show you how to change those out. But anyway, I'm just going to pause here, and I'm going to look through the board. And if I find anything juicy, I'll put it on video. Okay, so I've checked this board under my magnifying glass here, and I found exactly one cap that looks a little fuzzy, and it's right over here. It's C103. Okay. So let's replace C103. All the rest of them, unbelievably, are fine. Maybe this one too. It's really hard to tell if this is capacitor getting fuzzy or just a little bit of external fuzz. It's external, I think, because it's just coming up. So let's change. Let's change C103, okay? So you turn your board over. Everybody's got their own way of doing this. Some guys like to use solder wick, okay? You can get that really cheap, and you just you heat it up and it sucks solder out. I like a solder sucker, personally. The best is obviously having one of those nice desoldering machines. Those are awesome. But I haven't broke down and bought one of those yet. I don't do enough desoldering to have to worry about it. Okay, so C1, but it's great for desoldering ICs because they're a pain in the ass. So C103. What's really nice about the Techniques board is it's labeled on the bottom, so you can't go wrong, right? So anyway, so just heat up your pad and suck it up. And then I like to grab the cap with my finger and just wiggle it out. If I can get my finger in there, of course. 1 second. Well, I think this one might have, yeah, it did. It let loose. The corrosion let loose. So this one definitely was on its way. Oh, it broke apart. There you go. A corroded capacitor. That should not happen when you're desoldering a capacitor. So there you go. It happened live. This is a 33 microfarad at 25 volt. And you can see how it broke off here. There's rust on both the legs here. All right. So that's a bit of a pain in the butt. I have to solder them on the other side. Let's see if they'll just work loose. There's still a little bit of tackiness here. So you just heat up the pad, and there you go. There's the leg, capacitor leg right there, corroded. It's funny that there's only, oh, there we go. There's the other one. You can see the corrosion. Hang on. Let me show you that. I know it's really hard to see. I'm sorry, but there's corrosion all over that. All right, so just to make sure there's no further corrosion in that spot, we get rid of it. Just get a little bit of alcohol. You can either brush the pads or whatever you like. I just like to get that a little cleaning there. Get any corrosion out. Just clean the backside. Good enough. All right, go into your capacitor box. So we got here 33 microfarads. I like to keep a bunch of caps on hand here. So 33 at 25. What do we got here? 33 at 16. 3350. That'll work, by the way. 33. And you can go voltage higher, just don't go voltage lower. Oh, here we go. 3325. All right, so here's our new cap, 3325. So your board will be marked for positive and negative. Usually the negative is marked either with the negative symbol or a white mark. Okay, so on your capacitor, you'll also see that there's a white mark there, and the shorter leg is always negative. Okay, so pop your cap in, positive and negative. All right. Push her down. Just like to bend the legs over a little bit like that. Alrighty. And we'll just solder that down. Bob's your uncle. Alright, so we got a new cap in there. Polarity's correct. Again, I didn't see any other ones that were fuzzy or corroded. What would I recommend, in all seriousness? I would change out every capacitor on this board, okay? If you happen to buy a turntable in this condition, recap it, okay? It's not going to cost a lot of money. At least you'll know that, I mean, these caps are probably, 30 years old. It would not hurt to recap it. That would be my recommendation, but we're just repairing and preparing this board. So, I haven't been given any instruction to recap it, right? So, and it was working. I mean, that cap was probably on its last leg, probably, due to fail, but I can't, like I said, I can't see anything else, wrong with these caps. So we're just going to carry on, and, I'm going to say that this board's in decent shape. Okay, so what are these? My guess is that, oh, they must sit where these screws sit. This powder is really disgusting. Okay, so anyway, let's see if we can get this bearing apart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some WD-40, and I'm just going to spray a little bit here. Just let that soak just a minute, because I have a feeling that this screw's not going to be very nice. And I'm just going to soak where the cover sits too. I'm going to have to take this turntable outside and blow it again with the board off and get all that crap out of there. So I'm just going to soak this a little bit here. On the inside too. Just let that sit for a second. Amazing. All right. Let's see if these screws will come out. This is hard to do because that's one. It's not too bad anywhere else. We'll probably soak those in vinegar or something. Well, they didn't give too much of a fight, which is great. Here's our where our ball bearing sits. So that's corroded. Lovely, eh? And at the end of the 1200 spindle here, there sits a round bearing, and it's covered in a corrosion as well. It's not as bad as it looks, because it's coming off just with a wipe, eh? It's probably because it's, you know, whatever lubrication was there is probably keeping the rust from sticking. So yeah, lovely stuff. Anyway, let's just give that a quick wipe. Yeah, the bearing's in good shape. So to get this out is a little bit of a pain. We want it to come out the top. This gear, like I mentioned, this is an auto return gear. You can see the notch there, which trips the auto return mechanism. Yeah, they were just throwing these in here to hold the bearing down. It serves no function other than, oh, I cut myself. It serves absolutely no function other than to keep the bearing from popping out when you pull up on the platter. So to remove this, you have to pull these little tabs back like this. It's a pain in the butt. Screwdriver's probably a little bit better, too big. It's just plastic, so don't snap them. And just keep tugging down on the spindle. It should come out once you get them past the little notch. You can kind of start to hear it coming. I'm going to do this off camera, and then I'll show you how it comes out. Okay, after a bunch of really fiddly work, as you can see here, I've got the oh, there goes the bearing. Yeah, I got the bearing out. So anyway, yeah, it's just a matter of getting those 4 little pins pushed back and getting your bearing out, which is in surprisingly nice condition because it is covered in oil, and oil is the enemy of rust. So what am I going to do with this? I am going to clean it with WD-40 and get all this rust off. And WD-40, like I mentioned before, is a great cleaner. So let's go do that. Okay, so I finished cleaning off this main spindle here with some WD-40 and a brush. There's just some staining left over, nothing too serious here. Like I mentioned, the main bearing is spotless, the brass, the bushing, so it's fine. Better than it was. Here's our plate. That's the back side. And our gear, which, like I mentioned, serves no purpose. It just keeps the spindle from coming out. And here's the actual spindle here. I haven't cleaned this yet. going to clean this with alcohol after I just wipe off some of this surface corrosion. As you can see, it's still in beautiful condition. All right, so no different than any other bearing / bushing that I've done in the past. Grab some alcohol. And you're going to want to give that a nice wipe. Especially the end here, where all the rust was. See how nice and clean that is. And give this a wipe too, where the actual, this is where the ball sits, right on that little plate there. Make sure it's rust free. And for the bushing, I'll grab a little bit of alcohol. I'm going to clean the inside walls of that. Again, they are they're nice and clean, but so you just want to get in there and give that a nice cleaning. Just like that. All right. Okay, here we go then. So we're going to start reassembling the spindle here. So, what are we going to use for lube? The Technics bearing is, and the bushing spindle here is so perfectly machined that without any lubrication, it still slides super smooth, right? So because it's kind of a first lube, I'm just going to use a tiny bit heavier lube on it. I'm just going to use some soup. It's called Super Oil. It's a synthetic. I'm just going to put a little bit on here. And we'll put it in gently. There we go. Very nice. And we'll pop on our cap here. Yeah, I got it on, just so you know. I could have been pushing all day there. There's kind of a square side to this, and that's where it has to go in. As soon as you do that, it slides right on. It's not difficult at all. All right, so. Okay. So here's our plate, and what I like to do with the plate is I like to apply a little bit of synthetic grease to where the ball sits. So just get a little dab of grease, and I like to put it right there. Just like that. Okay, it's a little dab of grease in there. And then when the ball hits that, it's just right in a little bit of grease, right? So, okay, so you put your cap back on. And we're going to put our screws back in. One 1 and 2. These have to be tight, but do not strip them. And there you go. We have a beautifully lubricated and rebuilt Technics spindle. Smooth. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to go and clean that out, and I'll put this bearing back in. I'll get the board tied up again and continue on. Okay, got our bearing back in, cleans up. I sprayed a little bit of WD-40 in there just to prevent further rust. You're going to grab your board, just drop her into place. Okay, you feel it drop in. You're going to grab your 3 big screws. I'm going to put a little bit of drop oil on these. Just for the threads to go back in nicely. Alrighty. There we go. It's a little bit tricky to find the holes sometimes. And if they give you any kind of problem going in, remember that trick? You turn back, and then you hear that click, and then you go in, right? So you're going to want to screw these in like you put your tires on your car. Just snug them up. But don't crank one down and then do the others. So bring them down a little bit at a time, each screw. Okay. Then you'll start to feel them bite nicely into the aluminum. And then finish tightening them down. That way you've got nice, even, you know, the way it's sitting. All right, look at that. And let's give it one more drop for good measure, where the factory recommends you lubricate, which is right there. And beautiful. Now, tighten our board back down. And I mentioned about the ground here. There's a little bit of corrosion on these screws, so you can clean those off. A little WD-40 is good for that. This is where the ground is. And you can put a little bit here. And on the ground lug. WD-40 fights corrosion and cleans. These other 2 screws don't matter as much because they are not grounding the board. Okay. And now what I would do with this one, I'm going to use deoxit for this, and you just want to gently spray these connectors. Give them a shot. Don't worry about it. If there's any corrosion, you do not want that. And then just pull them in and out a few times to clean the pins. Clean out any connection issues. Main plug here. There. And that's the guts there. Shall we see how she's spinning? Look at this plug. Isn't that lovely? We'll have to clean that too. But for now, let's put our, you don't have to put your plastic plate back on. grab your platter and drop her down. We're just going to check to see how we're spinning. And we still have quartz. Bearing is silent. Brake works nice on this one. Nice. Those are D145. Wow, that's a great brake. I can't even get mine to stop that nicely. Awesome. Here we go. The light is still a little wonky here. Or just connection issue. I'm not going to go through the cleaning of this. There's some excellent videos out there on how to disassemble and clean, take apart, lubricate the pitch slider control on a 1200. And that, I think, is about it. What we'll be doing other than that is I'm going to, you know, maybe I lied. Why don't we get a look at this arm? Because the VTF for VTA is not going up and down. I think we should extend this video and do that. All right. So, okay. Anyway, that's good. Turn that off. Unplug. You're going to need to support, because there's no dust cover here, you're going to need to support the 1200 so that the arm doesn't get damaged. So I'm going to set up this turntable upside down and then we'll come back. Okay, I've got the turntable supported on a couple blocks of wood here. I've got one bad foot here. That's shut. So you need to take your feet off. Now, I am not going to unscrew the 3 million screws, but I will explain to you what order to do them in. What I like to do is work outside in, okay? So, can you see that? Oops. So work the 4 underneath the feet, and then do the outside screws, because they're different lengths, okay? And then do this inner circle, and then keep them all separate. And then when you put them back together, I like to work inside out. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll pull the rubber off. Okay, so we've got all the screws out, so you want to start prying at the rubber. This is very heavy, just so you know. I mean, this is the secret of the 1200, right? It's a big rubber base. And you got to pull your audio cables and your power cable through the 2 holes here. So just pull this out of the way like that. This one has a sub base on it too. Corrosion. That can be washed with a garden hose. Yeah, this one's got one of those sub panels on it, so sub bases. We're going to have to remove this too. And a bunch of screws around the side here so we can get access to the arm. So I'll do that off camera. Okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws for this puppy. And again, it's a matter of lifting it out and up and out. The hinges are attached to this section. Trying not to get this corrosion all over my floor. That's what makes this table so heavy. You can see that this is that powder I was talking about, this aluminum oxide, I guess it is. That is what was all over the bearing on the other table I worked on. All right, let's make sure you guys can see this. Kind of going to be in this area here. I don't know what we're going to find. Here's your pitch right there. If you're looking to service that, unplug it first from the upside. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look under the arm first. Whoopsie. Just wonder if that ring is corroded, if we can get some lube on it. Just get it to move. Kind of hard to see from here. It's definitely corroded. To remove the arm, you would remove these 3 screws here, and the arm will come up. But I don't want to do that just yet. I just want to see roughly where that ring resides. It's definitely on the inside. Shall we drop the arm? Let's have a look. Never done this before. I'm just going to put these screws back on here. Don't want to mess with the internal tone arm cabling. It's very delicate stuff. I'm just going to disconnect this ground. And we'll just start by loosening. I do not want to strip that screw. Here's a little trick. Get yourself some cutters. Bite into the screw and turn. Usually that gives you just a little bit of, maybe not. We got some corrosion here. Okay, I have to do this one off camera, folks. Well, this one's been fighting me here. I got it though. Must be rusted. Support your arm while you're doing this so the arm doesn't collapse. Yep, it's rusted. Yeah. Okay, so now the arm should pop out. Maybe we can lift it off these blocks now. So we can work on the arm. Okay, there's our arm. We'll pull it through and then we can set the turntable aside. Now, there's a little piece of tape here that's holding this ground in. So we just want to unstick that. And And we'll just set our rusty turntable aside. And here is our Technics SL1200 arm. And I'm kind of glad I did take this off because I see a whole bunch of corrosion inside of here. So I think, oh yeah, so you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's rust right in there. So I think what I'm going to do, before I take anything apart, is I'm going to use our old friend, WD-40 here, and I'm going to hope that it's going to just work its way around and loosen up any corrosion we might have underneath that before we have to do any kind of surgery. And we'll let that sit for a little while. And hopefully work its magic, right? There. So we'll pause, and if this frees up at all, I'll come back. If not, looks like we're going to have to get into the arm and start taking things apart. Ooh. Be right back. Alright, so my WD-40 is not working. There must be some serious corrosion in here. So I just I removed the strain relief, and I'm just going to pull these cables out so I can get a better look at what's going on. There's the guts of our 1200 arm here. That is the ring. So my only guess is it's got to be corroded. I really, really, really do not want to take this apart. So I'm going to continue on with, and you can see the threads there. I'm going to continue on with soaking here from the underside this time. It's kind of like a penetrating oil. And we'll wipe off any excess so it doesn't get on any of the internal guts. But we're going to let this soak now on the other side. And then hopefully get some, and you can see some corrosion right here, right? On these screws and stuff. So the arm was definitely not immune to the corrosion. So my guess is these threads are probably corroded up. Just want to try to loosen them with some lubricant. And like I said, although WD-40 is not really a lubricant, it is a great cleaner, and it does have the ability to loosen frozen joints. So anyway, we'll let that sit and we'll see what happens. Okay, as a YouTube guy, I am always ready to admit that even I have to go to YouTube sometimes to figure out what the hell's going on. And there's a gentleman from Britain who is a bit of a Technics 1200 specialist. His name's Viper Frank, and check out his channel for lots of Technics 1200 tricks. Just been saying for a while, but I have a feeling that maybe my lock is stuck. Although it's not. It is letting go, right? Because when it locks, it taps there. Anyway, his instructions were to remove these two screws. You guys see that all right? I'm going to be a bit further up. And that will... And there's an E-clip here that has to come out too. What can we grab that with? Some cutters? No. very difficult. It's very small. I usually like to pull these off with a screwdriver, but where's my little screwdriver? I think this is more of a C-clip. Oh, there it is. Now it's an E-clip. All right, you got to remove the C-clip. Set that aside. And now this should come off, if I'm correct. If I understood the instructions correctly. There it is. Ooh, is that rust? Anyway. Some yucky grease there that could probably clean. Now he's saying to hold on to this and to unscrew. Oh, I thought it was moving, but it's just the arm. He said to unscrew this whole body. Oh yeah. So now this whole body will come off. You can actually pull the arm right out. There you go. And then you see there's nothing holding this in except, of course, for corrosion, which is what I've obviously got here. So here's our mechanism. And I see how it works. But this ain't spinning. So we might have to heat this up or something. Okay guys, this is probably one of the worst things I've ever had to do. I have freed up the internal lifter mechanism. It was obviously corroded. I did go online and check. There are two dissimilar. If this looks a little chewed up, it's because I had to put pliers on it. What I used was a little bit more WD-40, but a lot of heat. And without the heat, you're never going to get this off. So you can use a hairdryer, but I doubt a hairdryer is going to have enough power. You need a heat gun, and you need to heat this for a solid minute. Don't worry about melting anything. This is aluminum, okay? So nothing's going to melt here. So you can heat the living crap out of it. Okay, get it hot. Don't burn yourself when you pick it up, obviously. I got some towels. And if you see the chew marks there, that's not a big deal. My wife's having a shower. Because that gets covered up by the trim ring here. Right, so you won't see those chew marks and the arm sitting there. So that's completely invisible. But you're going to have to get something on there because it's impossible to get your hand on here and get enough torque. Or if you have a bench vise or something. Yeah, this is a nightmare of a job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to completely unscrew this. And I can see the corrosion already. You can see the dark parts in there. That's the corrosion. I'm going to unscrew this completely. There it is. 2 parts unscrewed. See how very, 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 very fine those threads are. Alright, so we're going to clean those. I'm going to clean them with a little more WD-40 actually, and a brush. I'm going to clean those as best as I can to get the corrosion off. And we'll start buttoning this puppy back up and call this one done. This might be my longest video ever, but my goodness, if you have this this situation, I really feel for you. You can see the corrosion in there. You can see it right in there. Those threads are so fine that even the slightest bit of corrosion, you're going to be stuck forever. So anyway, I'm going to get these threads cleaned up as best as I can, and we'll be back. Okay, so I took these upstairs and I gave them a cleaning with some brass / copper cleaner. This is aluminum, so you've got aluminum and brass together. I don't know if they corrode. I'm kind of like what steel and aluminum do, like dissimilar metals. But anyway, so, and you gotta be really careful here because these threads are so fine that you could cross thread it. So just gently start it, right? And it doesn't hurt to run it down. It actually helps to clean the threads too, right? And then what we're going to do is we are going to grease these up. I'm going to use some synthetic grease again. And we're just going to put it on with a little bit of a Q-tip here. Alright, so go around your threads, get them coated. Because we do not want this to happen ever again. Oh, ever again. I think that was the end of my grease there. If I'm not out of my synthetic grease, I really like this stuff. Okay, so light coating there, and we'll do a light coating here as well. You don't need a lot. Pay special attention to those rusty areas. We get the threads nice and coated. I'm just pulling grease off where it went flying off my out of my tube there and onto the turntable itself. Don't want to waste it. I'll clean the turntable later. Alright, we're good and coated here. And now we will begin reinserting the pieces. Okay, so this one screws in counterclockwise. So what you want to do is just put it on. And just like when you're putting in a spark plug, you don't want to use any kind of torque early on, right? You want to just feel where those threads start to bite a little bit, and you'll know. There, I think we got it. There we go. Oh yes. Very nice. Beautiful. Okay, so that is in. We obviously have to tighten it a little bit more. And then we're going to have to put this back on. And it is glued on from the factory. So we'll get that inserted. And then we'll get the arm back together and hopefully we can put this turntable to bed. I will be back. And then we'll have to let that sit for a few minutes. So I'm going to put some glue around. Be careful not to get it anywhere near the threads, or this will be completely in vain. Pull it there. And then coat this too. So line up your 0. get her on. There. I'll let that set up. Okay, so I've screwed the tone arm back into this base here. And remember this piece? This piece here? What you want to do is you want to turn the arm until this kind of peg thing here lines up with these two screws, because this that piece sits there. So just kind of line it up there. And grab this piece, right? And this peg goes through that big hole, and then that peg goes through this hole, like this. Right? Just like that. And then you want to line up those, there's a couple pegs there. There. And here. This is really hard to do under the camera. Right, so those line up like that. You're going to want to get your two screws and put those back in. Of course. Ooh, have another screwdriver. Okay, so that's the lock mechanism. So what it does is when you hit the lock, it moves that arm up there and it touches that post and it keeps it from turning, right? So, and there's an E-clip here, but as some other guys have said, it really does nothing. It just prevents you from removing that that mechanism. And they're a pain in the ass. So put your E-clip back on, grab your pliers. And that's it. Okay, so our ring is now moving again, which is nice. Okay, going up and down. Plate's back on here. Got to be careful with the tone arm cabling here that we don't loosen that, because everything's factory original here. Actually, there's a that's different. I've never seen them go around like that. Usually they just get tacked down. All these Technics 1200 models are all different, from year to year. But anyway, this video has gone on way too long. Reassembly is going to be the opposite of disassembly, so I'm going to get working on that. And we'll get this turntable back to its owner, and hopefully it spins for a long, long time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Again, I appreciate your time. Any questions, comments, whatever, throw them down in the comments section. I'd really appreciate a subscription as well, if you could. That would be awesome and help the channel. I've got some more turntables coming in. Couldn't tell you what they are, but I know I've got a few lined up here. And hopefully they're interesting. And hopefully never have to do this one again, because this was a total pain in the ass. Thanks again, guys. You have a great day. Bye.